Morning everybody. Sunday, December 2nd, back over here to continue work on the bonnet. I got a nice little hole there. That's where I had replaced this little corner, and the metal got really, really thin as it would make the curve here because that's all one sheet. You can see that it's just kind of bent over there. So I think instead of cutting anything or whatever, I'm just going to try to fill that with weld metal, see if that works for me without blowing through or anything. And otherwise, I'm just going to continue on the bonnet. Yeah, there's still some dent pulling and stuff to do, but I think I want to move towards getting this in epoxy now, and that's frankly going to probably take most of the day and make a huge mess with getting all this red paint off of here. But that's what I'm going to go towards. I got some welds to get covered back up in epoxy, or excuse me, in fiberglass filler, stuff like that. So I'm just going to move down that line, and hopefully by the end of the day I'll be ready to get 2 coats of wet epoxy on here. We'll see. So not a whole lot to that. I just, like I said, filled in with some weld metal there. Filled in just fine. Fiberglass filler, of course, over top of that. Again, anywhere where I have welds, I'll get fiberglass filler over top of it. So looking at the inside of the bonnet here in preparation for getting it to paint, there's a lot of little bubbles and everything like that. You can kind of see some remnants here. I don't know that I really saved any spots, but what I'm afraid of is that I'm going to miss 1 or 2 or 3 or 20 of those, and then the epoxy primer is not going to adhere because it's going over top of crap paint, and then I'm going to lose adhesion throughout the entire layer. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to take down everything to bare metal as best as I can. Obviously there's going to be some places in here, especially up underneath the nose there, that I'm just not going to be able to get, but I'll give it a valiant effort. So that's going to be a long and dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Front cleaned up, pretty much clear paint. Just that little front clip there. Essentially destroyed the wire brush doing it. Used to be, I don't know, about double that width. So I'll have to invest in another one of those. I also have this nylon brush that I kind of forgot all about. I think I'm going to start taking that out. Get in the nooks and crannies with it. It's got a little bit more of a reach. But now I'm going to try to start on the inside in here. That's going to be kind of nasty. Also, if you remember all those little holes, if you can see those little drill holes there, that's where the wire clips came out, and they're sitting waiting to get welded back in. I'll do those eventually, but not too soon. So I'm happy with the way the inside is. Contrary to what I said earlier, I decided to not take it all down to bare metal. I just found, I believe, all of these spots that were bubbling. It's pretty much the concentrations were on this ridge here, inside the seams. Everything else was pretty onesies, twosies here and there. Also on the bottom, because the bonnet's upside down here, so what would be the bottom of the headlight cans up underneath that little ledge up under there. And under there, you can kind of see that one a little bit better because that's where the light is shining. That was in need of some cleaning. And then I just kind of took down a little bit along the sides here. So now I'm going to grab a bite to eat real quick, flip this guy over, and get going on the top, which I am going to take that down all to bare metal just because that's going to be where the paint goes. So Hopefully, what time is it? It's about 11 o'clock, so we're moving along. Kind of slow, noisy, loud, dirty. But all right, about 2 o'clock, got both wings done. I will get the top done, but I'm not sure that I'm going to get anything in epoxy today. As you would suspect, it makes an absolute mess. You can see all of the dust probably in the air, maybe. There's red covering everything. I even blew some stuff off already. You can see my filter mask, how nasty that is. So an alternative would have been to use like aircraft stripper or something like that, but now then I would have to deal with the chemical stuff, and I just didn't feel like doing that. Definitely be less dusty dirty, but then you got to deal with all that extra crap and all that. So anyway, I am going to get the top taken care of. Getting in on the louvers here, a little tricky, and down where the you know, the releases for the bonnet. That's a little tricky. I just have to take a wire wheel into those. This one shouldn't be too bad. Just use that nylon brush. But I'll get the top stripped off there, and then we'll see where we stand from there. Alright, so the bonnet is stripped on the outside. It's still pretty nasty in here. I just took my mask off and now I'm taking off so I don't have to breathe this stuff very long. No surprises, thankfully. Nothing that I found that required further repair or any damage. I do have the holes from the repair over here that the previous owner did. I've got to fill those in with weld metal, but otherwise everything looks good and sturdy. No even major pitting or anything. So happy with the shape of the bonnet. I'll next visit get it cleaned up really good. You can still see some reddish tint to it, all the dust that's settling out of the air still, and get it cleaned up really well and get it in epoxy primer. Thursday, about 3:45, the 6th of December, back over to continue work. Goal tonight is to get the top of the bonnet, or the outside, which you're looking at right there, in epoxy, essentially regardless of how far I get on anything else. If you can kind of see, the entire garage has got a red sheen all over it of paint dust. While very festive, it does definitely make a mess. So thankfully the Z is covered over here. My garage mate would be a little upset. But I'm gonna do hammer and dolly work for a little while, and various things. There's dents and dings in this thing. Fill these holes in here that the previous owner left from pulling out with the slide hammer, and maybe work a little bit more on the nose here and try to get that flattened out. But otherwise, just going to continue along down the path until about 6:30 or so, and then I'll move it into the booth over here, regardless, like I said, where I am, and get it in a couple coats of epoxy. So the first areas I'm going to work, I'm zoom in here a little bit. I don't know if you can see it. You can see that little star pattern that's right there. Right there. That's a dent from the back that starred up. And there's another one right here, which I took the star pattern all down. And then in here, you can kind of see that right in there. That's all messed up. Over here, you kind of have to trust me, it's a little less subtle to see. Big old dent pushing up right here on that crease, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to knock that down, knock these 2 points down, and just like I said, just kind of make my way around here, get the bad stuff out. So I've been working on some of the dents. I had a light one right there. You can see where I've worked that a little bit. I run the light over that and the camera over that. Better than it was. You'll have to kind of trust me there. But now I'm looking down here at these. And again, I'm struggling to show you where this stuff is. But there's a dent right here. If you can see, hopefully, there's not any sanding marks in there. And then another one right in there where you don't see any sanding marks. So I'm going to try to knock those out. Part of this bad nose stuff that's going on there, but not quite close enough for me to worry about right yet. And it looks like there's another one right here. So a couple good dings in this general area, and we're going to try working on them. Alright, so I worked on those dents. Still got a little low spot right there, you can see, because it's not scuffed up, but not too bad. Working my way across, there's a couple spots in here that still need some work. But again, right now I'm just trying to get the rough stuff before I'm running on a little bit of a timeline before I get into the paint. Now I got a real nice high spot right there, if you can see on that scuff there. So I'm going to try to use the shrinking disc to shrink that out a little bit and see how that goes. I haven't used the shrinking disc on this huge piece of metal, so I'm a little leery to not cause oil cannon, but I think because it's a relatively short distance in between where the headlight area is, the wing itself, and the center raised part, hopefully that'll stay. So we'll shrink this up and see if I get lucky. Alright, so shrinking those spots didn't work so bad. They're not flat by any means, but they're not as high as they were. If anything, they're a little bit low. So that's looking okay. I don't think I'm going to work on the nose at all, just because there's so much going on. I'd rather have the epoxy to show me the way with the contrast in it. The painful part, I think, is going to be back here and trying to get this back in. If you can see here on the other side, there's a pretty nice crease that runs through that, pretty defined crease. And then I've got some manglement going on in here. And I'm not quite sure how I want to approach that in a pretty big low spot that stretches a good 4 or 5 inches right here. If show you with the ruler. So this is the good side here, and you can kind of see there's not really a whole lot of light coming through that ruler there. But if I bring that same guy over here, you can see there's a huge amount there. So obviously I need to work that out, but being a large piece there, I'm kind of afraid to jump right into it and mess something up. So grab a bite to eat and then start getting this guy cleaned up. The time's running out where I've got to start making prep circuiter and epoxy. So I mixed up about 12 ounces of epoxy primer. Made a little bit of a mess. Now I moved up to the gallon. I got to come up with a way to pour that out of there. I know they make like mixing things and everything, but they're not cheap. So maybe I can get some little paper cups, not paper cups, plastic cups, something to dip that in there. Anyway, I mixed up about 12 ounces. I don't really know how much this is going to take. Obviously, hopefully 12 ounces is enough. That's the most paint that I think I've mixed up yet. So now these little remaining spots that have got a little bit of remnants of paint in it, if you can see in there on those edges, the grating has that too. I'm just going to take this nylon wheel here and try to go around and get those last little spots and then start cleaning it up. So one thing I forgot is I've got to go over it all with about 60 grit. So I got my DA sander. I'm going to go to town on all the AZ accessible areas. And then for the hard to reach areas, I'll hit it with my hand sandpaper and then get going. you might be able to see I'm a little limited in room in here. I did prop up the front to give me a little bit more access to underneath the nose. But now I need to get it all wiped down, wax and grease remover, and button up against the amount of time that I have remaining here. I need to get this in epoxy tonight so I don't have all this bare metal. Nice 60 grit swirl from the DA sander. So I'll get it all in, like I said, wax and grease remover, get it cleaned up, and then get to paint. Alright, so when I paint this here, I'm going to start in the center because I'm going to have to lean over and I don't want to make incidental contact because I'm not paying attention with what I've already painted if I do the wings. So essentially I'm going to take it from the center and work out. Try to get the edges first around that center area and then work my way out. Again, I'm kind of under a time crunch here. I need to get it in epoxy, at least one coat. I should be able to get two, however, even waiting 30 minutes. So I'm just going to put the camera in a bag here and go for it. The first coat of epoxy primer to dry. Got the door broken out here, blocked it out. Had one little incidental burn through, not going to worry about that. Otherwise I'm happy with it. Not perfect, definitely spots that are still low, but it's good enough for government work, as we used to say. So that one's good, and I'll show you the bonnet here real quick. Definitely more difficult than a cute little door or valance or anything being up there. There's a dry spray everywhere. Definitely something that I'm going to have to get used to and figure out. Both proper, technique as far as using the gun, and then again with how I'm positioning myself and where I'm putting myself. You see that big old dent? I didn't see that guy. But anyway, at least it's covered, and I think I got pretty good coverage everywhere. I'll come a little heavier with the second coat like I normally do. I couldn't get in there really at all. Got to figure out how I'm going to get in there. Maybe a paintbrush for that guy. That'll be hidden by the grill. But I'll definitely some good spots like down in there. But mostly it's not real pretty, but it is covered. So, and it was well prepped, I think. So hopefully it'll adhere, and I'll get that second coat on, get my paint gun cleaned up, and get out of here. All right, 2 wet coats down. Still have some dry spray right there. You can't really see it. You need the light, but it's an epoxy. So next step up will be continue with the body work, and just kind of looking at it real quick, it's definitely not horrible, which is good. So we'll see how it goes. All right, everybody, that's it for me for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for liking, and thanks for subscribing. As you can see, I got the bonnet in epoxy primer, at least the top of it. The inside is going to be significantly more difficult for all the nooks and crannies. Didn't go too bad. Still, like I said, I have technique to work on, but otherwise, I'll get back over here sometime this weekend and start to getting on to the dent work in earnest. Have a good night. Cheers.